In my last video, we looked at my top 10 coasters as a coaster noob. If you missed that video, then be sure to check it out, as today we'll be comparing that list to my current one. I'll leave a link to it down in the description. In 2021, I rode 40 new coasters and it shook up my top 10 quite a bit. Before we begin, some honorable mentions that just missed the cut include Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Studios Florida, Wild Eagle at Dollywood, Batman the Ride at Six Flags Over Georgia, Kraken at SeaWorld Orlando, and last but certainly not least, Thunderhead, also located at Dollywood. So here's how I rank my top 10 coasters as of the end of 2021. Number 10, Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. I honestly wasn't looking forward to this coaster too much, as I didn't fully enjoy Superman Ultimate Flight my first few rides. I much preferred Grace on a coaster compared to Intensity, so I was interested to see how the Pretzel Loop would perform. I rode this in the front of the train and it blew me away. The duration of this ride was far longer than I expected, and with how gracefully Manta swept through its layout, combined with its scenic terrain and iconic flyby, there was no question that it had completely won me over. Despite it being ranked 10th on this list, it was possibly my biggest winner of the year. Number 9, Mindbender at Six Flags Over Georgia, the first of a trio from this park. This is the original Mindbender, before the Six Flags chain's renovation of the ride. It's important to note that I have these listed as Mindbender A and Mindbender B in my overall rankings, but I still count them as one credit. Before the redo, Mindbender provided a classic ride experience that had some impressive forces through its loops, and a couple moments of airtime. I admit that this is probably overrated in my rankings due to it being my first ever inverting coaster, and as such, I have a soft spot for it in my heart. But it's also tough to rank a now semi-defunct coaster, and as the old saying goes, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. Number 8, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. Taking a short trip up the midway, we find a still intact elite steel coaster. This B&M Hyper provides some of the most aggressive airtime that I've ever experienced. While some people rave about the double helix turnaround, it's just too much for me to handle. Many enthusiasts complain about the rattle, but it honestly just adds to this out of control ride in my opinion. As the ride progresses, you transition from crazy floater airtime to some insane flojector and even ejector that slams you back down into your seat at the bottom of the hills coming into the brake run. I'm so fortunate to have this ride at one of my home parks, and speaking of my home park, Number 7, Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. One of the two coasters that remain ranked in my top 10 from last year, along with Mindbender at the same park. What else can I say? This remains the only RMC hybrid that I've ridden, and it offers a smooth ride full of ejector airtime. Don't sleep on that ejector hill after the turnaround. Twisted Cyclone has dropped in my rankings due to its short duration and terrible ops that I've experienced as of late, although I did get some excellent rides towards the end of 2021. I don't knock it as hard as others do for being short. I do rank it higher than Goliath after all, but the coasters ahead of it on this list really separated themselves from the pack. Not to mention Air Force One waiting on the horizon. Number 6, SheiKra at Busch Gardens Tampa. This was my first dive coaster and I was thoroughly impressed. The views from the top that you're able to take in are some of the best out there. Overlooking the animals and being able to see downtown Tampa and St. Petersburg in the distance is a real treat to start off the ride. As with all dive coasters, SheiKra features a massive vertical drop and follows it up with an Immelman loop. Similar to Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, SheiKra concludes with a majestic splashdown for onlookers to enjoy. After riding it, I declared it my favorite in the park, but have since changed my opinion. Number 5, Montu at Busch Gardens Tampa. Just edging out SheiKra to make it into my top 5. I knew absolutely nothing about Montu's layout coming into this ride, or how massive it truly was. This thing dwarfs the Batman clones, which was the only other B&M invert that I had ridden previously. I was shocked to learn that it was 150 feet tall and featured 7 inversions. The ride swoops through a wealthy Egyptian landscape and hugs the ground as it traverses through multiple trenches and tunnels. Montu has the perfect mix of intensity and gracefulness that I seek in a coaster, and I wish I had gotten more than one ride on it. I cannot wait to return to Busch Gardens Tampa this year to get more rides on this gem of a coaster. Number 4, Hagrid's Magical Creature. You get the point. at Islands of Adventure. I was expecting to enjoy this ride, but not nearly as much as I did. I had heard people raving about it, but didn't want to set my expectations too high. Put this up there with Manta for my biggest winners of the year. Good luck finding another coaster that tells a better story than this one. It manages to provide a unique ride experience while also packing in some semi-thrilling moments, especially if you get the motorbike seat. I cannot recommend that enough. This ride had me grinning from ear to ear as it launched its way throughout its course, and as such has skyrocketed its way to number 4 in my overall rankings. Hagrid's just has that fun factor that I haven't been able to find on another coaster that I've ridden, and I'm willing to sacrifice some thrills for that. Number 3, Lightning Rod at Dollywood. Unfortunately, I missed out on the original Lightning Rod, but at least this was open when I went. Well, sorta. I fortunately visited the park for 2 days and was able to ride on the second day, after waiting out some maintenance issues. Not a surprise. You know, the typical Lightning Rod experience. However, when the ride does run, boy does she. I was left wanting more out of the launch on a few of my rides, or this may have been higher on my list. Regardless of the launch, the ride still hauls through its layout at an incredible pace, doing things I couldn't have previously thought were possible on a coaster. That quad down is like something out of a dream, and one of the most iconic coaster elements to just sit and watch coming down the mountain. Even though it obviously has had its fair share of growing pains, the Lightning Rod is still good enough to crack my top 3. Number 2, Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. I was expecting big things out of Mako, and it delivered on everything I could have possibly asked for. I was unfortunate enough to feel a little motion sick the day I was marathoning Mako, so I didn't get as many rides as I had wanted, but I got enough to know that this was my number 1 coaster at the time. The soundtrack, awesome. The theme, awesome. The ops, awesome. The ride, incredible. Floating over that first drop really gives you an idea of what you're about to experience. That 5-second airtime hill, when ridden in the back row, is one of my favorite coaster elements that I've ever experienced. The trim brakes did hit a little too hard, but Mako still kept me hovering above my seat almost the entire ride. This is also one of the most beautiful color schemes on a coaster that I pray they don't ruin like so many parks are doing right now. Poor Kraken. While Mako did manage to be ranked as my number 1 overall coaster, it managed to stay there for a solid 5 days. Number 1, Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. I think everyone was worried that the hype surrounding this ride was too high, but somehow Universal Creative pulled this little churro stand off. First off, the theme. It goes without stating that this is clearly themed to the Jurassic World film franchise, but the way that it is done, from the second that you step into the queue, is just jaw-dropping. The queue itself could be a standalone walkthrough attraction because it's that immersive. The locker system is also fluid, showing that Universal has listened to guest complaints about Hulk and Rip Red Rocket's previous flaws. The pre-show gets you laughing and excited to finally board the trains. And then finally, the anticipation is over. It's time to launch into the paddock. After my first ride, I knew it was really good, but I was placed in the middle of the train and I needed to ride it in the front and back to truly judge it. Soon after, I was put in the back by sheer luck in the single rider line, and wow. It was then I knew that it was not only my number 1 coaster, but that it wasn't even close. Every single element throws you around in ways other rides just don't. I was getting airtime in places I didn't know you could get airtime. And that top hat, well, let me just tell you, that was the greatest whip I have ever gotten on a ride. I folded over my lap bar like a lawn chair, with my legs flying up and my body flying forward. And that's not even mentioning the launches. Especially the second one that sends you up the top hat. Just ridiculous. Finishing with the famed Mosasaurus roll, Velocicoaster leaves every coaster that I've ever ridden in the dust. I don't know what could possibly top this ride. With Universal's budget and intellectual properties, it's going to be nearly impossible to accomplish this anywhere else. Thank you, Velocicoaster. I will be back. Thank you all for watching. Those are my top 10 coasters that I've ridden as of the end of 2021. Did I over or under rank some of these rides? Let me know in the comments below, as well as what your rankings look like. If you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and give it a like, and subscribe to my channel for more videos just like this one. I'm currently working on a lot of different ranking videos that I'm excited to share with you in the future, both here on YouTube as well as over on Instagram, where you can follow me at Dr_Coaster. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.